everyone. Welcome to my presentation. I am Nilata, and today I will be talking about functionalism versus generativism, a critical overview. Now, first of all, why did I choose this topic? I asked myself, why do we utter words at all, or why do we speak differently in different contexts? That is answered by functionalism. And if we go a few steps back, we ask ourselves, um, how did we acquire the skill of language at a very young age? So that is answered by generativism. I am more interested in these because we often take these aspects of our lives to be taken as granted, and we do not look further into it. So that is why, in exploration of these aspects, I have chosen this topic. Now, without further ado, let's move on to functionalism. Functionalism is a school of thought in linguistics that is interrelated with structuralism. Um, it criticizes some of the aspects of structuralism. Functionalism, as the name suggests, it looks at the function of language in social contexts. There are four claims of functionalism. Number one, use of language is functional. Number two, function of language is to make meaning or sense. Number three, meanings are influenced by the social and cultural context because obviously the language is somewhat affected by the uh, our surroundings. And lastly, the process of using language is a semiotic process, which means it is uh, through symbols we express uh, language. Now, the one of the most influential linguists in functionalism is Roman Jacobson, and he came up with a few functions of language. Number one is referential, that is marked by the reference to the context of discussion, which means that, for example, I said a sentence like Biden won the election. Now, I did not mention who is Biden or which election. Um, Without any clue, we already understand that we are talking about the American presidential election. Now, situation helps us to understand the context of the sentence. Then we have poetic function of language, which is the use of figurative language like irony, metaphor, oxymorons. It is basically the decorative aspect of a sentence that makes our language sentence richer. Then we have the emotive and the conative function of language. Emotive is for the addresser and the conative is for the addressee. The way they perceive a sentence and what sort of feelings do they give off in while uttering a certain sentence. Emotive is talks about the emotion that we have, whether we are angry or sad about an information. Fatigue is intended for the establishment and maintenance of social contact, which means that fatigue helps are basically the small talks. Like, for example, when we see someone with whom we do not have a really close contact, but we say them like, hello, how are you? Or the small talks that we have. So this helps us to maintain social contact with people. Then we have metalingual. This one is basically concerned with the use of verbal code and clarifying ambiguities, which means that when we say like, what do you mean? Like when we are confused about something, we uh, use metalingual language. Then we have Mathesius's functional sentence perspective. So he talks about two entities, the theme and the reme. Now, the theme is basically what is being talked about, and the reme is what it talks about what the theme is doing. For example, we have the dog barked when the robbers entered. Here, the theme is the dog, and the reme is barked when the robbers entered, which means it talks about what the dog did. Now, this FSP has been further made into a theory by J. Firbus in his communicative dynamism. What is communicative dynamism? It is basically a degree of relative degree of communicative importance by which the elements contribute to the unfolding of the or decoding a certain information. Um, for example, in Fibonacci tripartition, we have an extra element over here, which is theme, transition, and rime. So he says, for example, we have he was eating. He is the theme, was is the transition, and eating is the rime. So uh, Philebus also mentions that theme carries the lowest degree of communicative dynamism because the theme does not give much information, whereas the rime gives us most of that information about what the theme is doing. That is why the rime has the highest amount of communicative dynamism. Then we have Halliday's systemic functional theory. Halliday is a very influential name in linguistics. Now, he said that functional organization of language is not as important as the structural organization of language is way less important than the function of language. Sorry about that. Language has evolved to satisfy human needs, and the way it is organized is functional with respect to these needs. It is not arbitrary. Now, Halliday has come up with a few meta functions. Number one is interpersonal. Interpersonal is basically the grammatical resources for enacting social roles and for establishing or maintaining social contacts with people. Then we have ideational, which is expressing what we are feeling inside, basically talking about our opinions, if we are angered about something or sad about something or happy about something. Then we have the textual meta function, that is to provide the speaker and hearer with strategies for guiding the listener to interpret the text. And lastly, we have logical meta function, which is to construe the link between one piece of discourse with another. Some words like and, or, because is used which has a logical meta function in a sentence. Halliday also came up with some macro functions of language, which is instrumental, that is basically what I want, expressing what I want. Then we have regulatory, which is like commanding or ordering someone. Then we have interactional, which is to continue the conversation between two or more people. Then we have personal, and then we have heuristic, which is expressing the world around, and inside us is basically talking about what's going on inside our thoughts. Then we have imaginative, which is like we create our own, create a world of our one's own, like we create novel words or thoughts. That is imaginative. And then we have informative, that is to communicate new information. Now we come to generativism, that is introduced by Noam Chomsky. It is basically a criticism of behaviorist theory. Behaviorist theory basically says that a child's brain is a blank slate, which means we acquire everything from our surroundings. But Noam Chomsky refutes that by saying that we have an innate capability to acquire knowledge. That is basically generativism. Now, Noam Chomsky talks about competence and performance. Competence is basically the system of linguistic knowledge possessed by native speakers, which is basically inside of us that we already possess. And performance is basically when we use the competence to communicate with people. Now, this has a relationship with Saussure's Long and Pachol. Long is related to competence, while Pachol is related to performance. Then we have generative and transformative grammar. Now, before going into that, I must say that sentences are infinite. We have creativity and recursiveness, for which we can produce infinite number of sentences. But the thing is, generative grammar talks about sentences that are grammatical in a given language, which means they maintain the grammar structure. Then we have transformation grammar. Transformation grammar basically talks about analysis that recognizes the relationship among various elements of a sentence and among the possible sentence of a language, and use rules to express these relationships. Two sentences might have, they might they might be structurally different, but they are related. That is what transformation grammar talks about. For example, the active passive aspect, which is, for example, I washed the dishes. That is the active form, and the dishes were washed by me. That is the passive form. Or we have a statement, Sam came over in the afternoon. That has also has the question part, like when did Sam come over, or who came over in the afternoon. So the dual aspect of a sentence is described by transformation grammar. And transformation grammar also helps us to analyze ambiguous sentences. For example, flying planes can be dangerous. Now, this is a little bit confusing because we do not know what exactly the person is saying. It can, so now transformation grammar helps us to give a deep structure to a surface structure. Flying planes can be dangerous is a surface structure. And if we go a bit deeper, we can find out two meanings of this sentence. That is, airplanes, either airplane can be dangerous when they fly, or to fly airplanes can be dangerous. So these two deep structures can be assigned with the help of transformation grammar. Now, further overview, then comparison and similarities will be discussed in my term paper. And that is it from me. Thank you.